We're live.
Hello, Chicago, and the rest of the viewers out there. Welcome to Monsters of the Madhouse, brought to you by Chicago Sports Podcast. I am your host, Brandon, and I'm here with Dustin Jones. And we're not just going to bring it to you guys; we're going to break
Hey,
it down.
Brandon.
Hey, Dustin, how you feeling tonight?
I feel good. How about you?
Not too bad, man. Not too bad.
That's
Had a good
good.
day. Yeah. All right, so
Happy to have
let's.
everybody here with us. Let's keep
Yeah,
going.
thanks for viewing, guys. Please feel free to comment at any moment. We will definitely address those during the course of the show. Where do you want to start, Dustin?
Well, I
I
mean,
think. I
we're
think.
doing it's our odds Odyssey, right?
Yeah.
we're giving this a shot and we're gonna see how we do. I think over unders in the NFL is what's interesting me the most right now in terms of odds out there, those future bets on the NFL. And I specifically looked at the NFC North because not only is it a good idea on, where you can be placing some bets, but it's also it sets a good baseline for, how the division's going to play out in the eyes of Vegas. So we'll just go with those.
Yeah, one of the two powerhouse divisions in the NFL in 2024. Definitely.
Yeah, we're going to get into that too. It looks like it, at least how they're projecting it. Looking at the Lions, we're at 10.5 on their over under being set right now. And we're looking at the Packers at 9.5. Now that goes back to yesterday when I was saying the Lions are, I think, the better team in the NFC. That's kind of reflected in those Vegas odds. Bears are at 8.5. One game behind the Packers there. So we got one game separating the Lions and the Packers, one game separating the Packers and the Bears, and then it's a little bit of a bigger drop off to the Vikings at 6.5. And that's a total of 35 projected wins for the NFC North, which is pretty high in comparison to a lot of the other divisions. So, I mean, just asking you, you got those over unders. What do you think of them in terms of the Lions at 10.5? Bear down?
I think I would. I think this is safer, but I mean, they're going to have the tough. Obviously going to have the toughest strength of schedule in the division. I would probably take the under, but not very much. I'd say 10 wins exactly.
10 wins exactly for the Lions. I got the over, man. I'm seeing 12 wins there.
So where do you place the Lions in the NFC?
Hey, we got our banner for the bottom.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Where do you place the Lions in the NFC?
In the NFC, I mean, I just want to preface this by saying these are before the draft, so these aren't really predictions on the season as of right now. I would say that the Lions, the way the odds makers have shown it, it's reflecting on them being about the third best team in the NFC, maybe the second. So they're going to be up there in terms of wins if they hit 12. There's not going to be many teams higher than them.
Yeah, the Vegas odds have the NFC North is a pretty tight knit division in terms of where their overall wins are. I don't know that it's going to finish that way. It never really does. I mean, it could. Like I said, they're one of the stronger divisions in football going into next season. But there's a lot of ifs. Minnesota's still waiting on a quarterback, and Chicago's going to see what it's going to be. Caleb Williams. We got to see how he performs. But how do you feel about the
Like I said,
Bears?
a lot of this is going to change, within the next month or so in terms of what we're going to see in terms of these projections. What were you saying?
How do you feel about the Bears at 8.5?
I said yesterday, and I think I'm only going to feel better about it once the draft happens, but I'm definitely taking the over on the Bears. They got to win 9 games to hit the over. I think that's very feasible. Last year, they were projected at 7.5 wins for the season. They came in just under that with a much more subpar team than we're seeing them put together right now, right? So I could see 9 wins very easily for them. Could probably push it to 10, depending on what they do in the draft. But I got them winning the same amount of games as the Packers right now in terms of how I'm looking at it, again, from this very preemptive position. But I got the Packers on the under. They got 9.5. I think, 9 makes sense to me in terms of where they're going to fall. I think they're going to be very close with the Bears in terms of their performance.
Cheryl just updated us. The Sox are currently leading the Braves
The Sox are winning.
2-1.
Wow. Nice.
Yeah, I got to agree
Good
with you,
for
Dustin.
them. Yeah, they
I
were
think
1.5. They were getting 1.5 points in that game. So
Yeah, that's
So far, that if you bet on them, it's looking good.
which is kind of generous. Yeah, I got to agree with you. I think the safe bet with the Bears is obviously over on the 8.5 games. They won 7 last year. They've obviously improved the roster, and I do think they're going to have a much more efficient passing game. I could easily see them finishing with 9 wins, possibly 10. So the devil's advocate here, I'm going to play it. That brings us to
Let's go, Packers fan. Let's hear it.
9.5. I like the over on 9.5. I do. Packers were a playoff team last year. They didn't do a whole lot to their roster. They do build well in the draft. They're a team that drafts well consistently, but very, very young and raw players on that offense. And I think they're just one more year improved. And I think it was really good for the Packers to get that one game in the playoffs. I know it was only one game, but it makes a difference in terms of experience.
Well, the Packers have come in on the over. I believe 4 out of the last 5 years. They had 1 year where they didn't hit the over. That was in 2021, I believe. So there's good coaching on that team, and we know that. I just think the competition level is raising in that NFC North. I think the Packers are still an evolving team, but I could easily see them taking a step back as I could see them taking a step forward.
Yeah, there's a lot of uncertainties on how Jordan Love responds to the success he had last season. He obviously finished the season very strong, so he's got to pick up where he left off, and that could be the difference makers for those guys. We got Dano saying the Packers will win 10 games.
Okay, Dan. That's 9.5. That's obviously plausible. I could see them, losing a game to the Bears, losing a game to the Lions. They could potentially have 3 losses just within the division. So it's going to be a tough division. Whoever comes out of the division might have no more than 11 wins.
Yeah, so let's move on to the dark horse that is the Minnesota Vikings. And like you said earlier, it's really, really tough to make these bets before the draft is passed. With the Vikings, I think is especially risky.
Well, that's why we're being speculative, just having some fun with these numbers.
So the Vikings are at 6.5. What would they win last year? It was 7 games?
Yeah, it sounds right. I don't know for sure. 6.5 though.
They obviously had a great start with Kirk Cousins. Once he was injured, things changed for him. And now they're without Kirk Cousins entirely. So how do they respond?
I think they respond by, kind of underperforming in this first year. Now, it's tough because I really do like some of the moves that they've made to develop this team and add some good talent to that defense. Brian Flores runs a great defense, very aggressive defense, and they've made some signings to really help bolster that. And if they get the quarterback they want, then they could make some noise. But I'm operating under the assumption that they're going to end up with JJ McCarthy. I don't believe in JJ McCarthy, and I see that affecting their win total, and I could see them coming in under on that 6.5. See them winning like 6 games.
Yeah, I agree. It wouldn't surprise me if they finished below that mark. Like I said, they lost a quarterback that's been there for a couple of years already, and they only won 7 last year, as Dano just updated us. So I do agree, even with the rookie quarterback.
Yeah, they were both 7-10, the Bears and the Vikings. The Vikings had the tiebreaker. That's right.
Yeah, and I do think even with a good head coach,
thanks, Dan.
With the rookie quarterback, I do think they come in at under 6 games, 6.5 games as well. All right. Do you have,
especially if that rookie quarterback is JJ McCarthy, they're going to have some growing pains with that.
Yeah, I think we discussed it a lot.
And I don't believe in Sam Darnold either, so that could be tough sledding for them.
No, and I don't know if you're drafting a quarterback. Do you still let Sam Darnold start? Is he a bridge quarterback? And while we're talking about bridges, guys, let me reach out to give a thanks to one of our sponsors, Bridges Scoreboard Restaurant and Sports Bar out in Northwest Indiana, guys. Get out there. I know Dano's been there, Brandon's been there, Dustin, you've been there yourself, and I hear a lot of good things about the food.
Yeah, I enjoyed the food very much. Good fries. I had a fries and a burger, just classic, but it was good. Pitcher of beer. It was a nice place to hang out. Nice segue, Brandon. Been practicing that.
Yeah. Okay, so let's remain in the NFL on the over-unders. Obviously, move on from the NFC North. What are give me a few teams that you think might be interesting in regards to betting?
Well, in terms of some unders that I think could happen, I'm looking at the Raiders. They're at 6.5 as well. I'm not buying the hype on them. For I kind of liked the way Pierce took over that team and kind of gave them an identity, but now it just seems like more talking than actual backing up. They had that one win against the Chiefs at the end of last year, Christmas Day, but they don't have a lot of talent. And 6.5 wins, I think, is generous for them, and I could see them coming in on the under on that. And that would be, if you bet the under on that, you can bet $118. You can bet $100 to win $118. So I like the odds on that in terms of money back. And this one's for you, Brando. The Jags at 8.5. Man, I'm gonna go with the under. I don't like that team. I don't think they made the right decision. I don't think you think they made the right decision in keeping Doug Peterson. So I just think that team fell apart at the end of last year, and I feel like they haven't really done anything to address that from my perspective. They lost Calvin Ridley, and they just got worse. They didn't get better. So the under on that is, bet 110 to get 100.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I was skeptical, obviously, about Doug Peterson, about Matt Eberflus, but the retaining Doug Peterson decision baffled me even more. Thought they were a team that were in control of their division and just kind of fell apart. And it's clear they have, talent enough on the roster to win games. So where do you got to look at a team that implodes like that? I think the first place is coaching. And they fired a lot of assistant coaches, a lot of positional coaches.
Scapegoats.
Yeah, I wouldn't have put the blame on necessarily.
Well, Doug Peterson did, and he kept his job, and that's why I see the Jags going under again this year. Again, it's speculative, but when I'm looking at them, that one looks like good odds and a good bet to come through for you. Jags 8.5. Go under.
They're in a weak division, but I agree with you. It seems like it's obviously not as bad as the Urban Meyer situation was, but it doesn't look like it's getting any better for him.
Okay, you got one?
Yeah, I was thinking. So the Jets finished 7-10 last year with pretty egregious quarterback play. They're obviously
Zach
getting
Wilson,
they're obviously getting Aaron Rodgers back. He has been a year since he's played football, but the over/under is at 9.5, and I really like the over on this. I do. I know they're in a tough division. I don't like betting against Rodgers, and they made some moves in the offseason that I think made them better as well. They finally added a piece across from Garrett Wilson. They don't have to rely on the guys that Rodgers unfortunately convinced them to bring along. But so if you bet 105, you get 100. I do think the over on 9.5. They'll probably go. I'm guessing give them 3-3 maybe in a division. The defense was good enough to win them 7 games last year. Let's be honest, that offense.
I would go the under on the Jets, man. They made some signings, some big ones, but they're injury-prone guys. Mike Williams, Tyron Smith. I don't see it with them. I didn't see it last year with them. I think even if Rodgers stayed healthy, I didn't like them to be a playoff team, and I don't see much difference going into this year. They say they're all in, but there's a lot of ifs with that team in terms of like if you can stay healthy, if our coach isn't a moron. Like there's a lot of ifs with the Jets, and I'm not a fan, man. I would go under on them. The AFC East, I would have to disagree though. It's down. It's going to be a down year for the AFC East, I think. I mean, the Patriots are in a rebuilding phase from everything I can tell. The Bills, they've lost a lot of players due to cap constraints. They still got Josh Allen. That's what makes them the favorite. And the Dolphins, it's the jury's still out on Tua, and if he can perform when they need him to. So I think the division is up for grabs. But that being said, I think the Jets are counting on too many things going right when the odds aren't in their favor.
I think they're really strong in the defensive side of the football. So Rodgers just has to do it. I don't think they're going to have to score a whole lot of points to win games. And I think trusting a guy like Aaron Rodgers, like you said, they did add Mike Williams. He has had injury issues, but I think Rodgers can put enough points on the board as long as their defense can do what they did last season. Get up. Honestly, the defense is the reason they won 7 games. Another one that's a little confusing to me is the over/under on the Pittsburgh Steelers is at 7.5 after a 10-win season. I know a lot of people are pretty split on Russell Wilson and where his career lies, but I think it's an
He had a pretty
improvement.
good year last year, honestly. I mean, from what people think versus what he actually put up statistically, he had a pretty solid year.
So we got VVV Jiggy saying, I like the Dolphins for that division. I agree that division should be at the bottom, though.
I mean, in terms of win total projected right now, they are one of the lower divisions in football. And yeah, the Dolphins. If I'm picking a team out of that division right now, I might go with the Dolphins. Yeah.
Yeah, let me just pause real quick, guys, to say please like and subscribe to the Chicago Sports Podcast channel. Brandon Trax does a lot of hard work to keep this thing moving, guys.
Trax.
Machine. And, we'd love, obviously, more comments, more chat. We'd like to get you guys involved. You guys always give us a good talking points. My Pittsburgh at 7.5 games after a 10-win season. I do think Russell Wilson's better than anybody that played quarterback on this team last year. They just signed Patrick. They signed Patrick Queen, which is a huge improvement on the linebacking core. Joey Porter Jr.'s got one more season under his belt. I don't see how the Steelers, if at all, maybe one game from a 10-win season. They're in a really
Najee Harris is due to blow up too, man. That guy works really hard. He runs really hard. I know he's had some down years here, but he runs hard, and I think he's due to blow up. So I kind of agree with you on this Steelers one.
Yeah, and I just like there's another team that just consistent success, right? I mean, they're always really strong in the draft. I thought they did phenomenal in the draft last year, and it seems like every year they get stronger in the draft by picking the Bears apart. But my last team that I would say is kind of surprised me, and
one thing on the Steelers, you just can't bet against Mike Tomlin. The guy's never had a losing season in 20 years, damn near. So betting against Mike Tomlin is not a smart move for anybody looking at those over-unders for the Steelers.
Yeah, for sure. Top 3 coach in the NFL. My last one is going to be Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay did win the division last season. It was a very weak division that the Falcons have obviously made incredible improvements with Kirk Cousins. But the Tampa Bay's over-under is 7.5 games. I do still like the over. I'd still have them winning 8 games. If Baker Mayfield has a season like he did last year, especially the way he finished the season, I think one of the other teams, and I do think Atlanta wins the division, but I think one of the other teams in that division does finish with somewhere around the winning record.
That's a decent prediction because probably 2 of those teams. I mean, the Panthers are projected at 4.5 right now with their over under. I believe the Saints are at 6.5 or 5.5. So I mean, like they're expecting to have a couple of bad teams in that division for the Bucs to potentially beat up on. So that makes sense. I mean, I don't know that I buy into the Falcons. I mean, it seemed like they were a quarterback away, but who knows, man? That division's going to be tough. It's going to be like it was last year, like last man standing type, 9-win team getting in there. So, and the Falcons are at 9.5. So,
well, the Falcons improved greatly at the quarterback position, but an issue they still need to address is pressuring the quarterback. So that could cause problems for them next season. All right, so
and my last one is Houston, right? They're at 8.5 projected for the season. Just had a playoff run. They're a young team. They're gonna get better, as far as I can tell. If you bet the over, it's plus 104. I think those are really great odds at 8.5 for a team that just won 10 games and went to the playoffs and won a playoff game. I'm pretty surprised that the odds you can get there on that over. I like the Texans.
Yeah, that is surprising, man. 10.5. Because to be honest, too, that in a division that just keeps getting weaker, it feels like. Honestly, we just discussed the Jaguars, the Titans. Don't. I mean, they fired who I thought was a really good coach, and they've gonna probably give Will Levis a shot to start the whole year. I don't know how well that's gonna go for him. I don't not too high on him. And then the Colts, does Richardson stay healthy? And if he does, is he the guy? We only got to see him for 4 games last year. That's so really Richardson's coming into this year almost still a rookie. You know what I mean? So I agree. I agree with you there.
The Colts are at 8.5 too. I don't see how the Colts are at 8.5 with the Texans. That makes no sense to me. I like Anthony Richardson, but can that guy stay healthy? Like you said, like no, it doesn't make any sense. Take those odds on Houston. Take the over on that 8.5. You'll make some money.
Yeah, and I would like to shout out, guys, to another one of our sponsors, Serendipity Ice Cream Power. I know we got some snow coming tomorrow, and ice cream's not the first thing you think of, but they do offer a funnel cake sundae, and I promise you, you will be the hero, mother, or father if you take your kid out to Serendipity and get them a funnel cake sundae. So I think we've kind of beat the NFL up a little bit. I agree that the NFC North was the most important thing to address because that's where our Bears are. But let's move on to the NCAA tournament. We are in the Final Four, so we've got 2 games, I believe, coming Saturday. Let's start with NC State and Purdue, the the team that is cursed, Purdue. How do you feel about this? I know the spread is at 9.5. How do you feel about that game?
I don't like I don't particularly like the odds for anybody in that game or for the other game for that matter. I mean, if you want to bet to have some fun, you can bet the money line on the 9.5 for NC State and pull for them to stay within reach of coming away with the win. But I don't see NC State beating Purdue. Not the way Zach Edey's been playing. I mean, uh, DJ Burns played his ass off against Duke. We talked about that last night, and he could be a mismatch problem for Edey, but I don't see it. I see Edey stuffing his shot if he gets the chance. So I mean, that 9.5 is just like it's a decent number if you're NC State, but the odds aren't really great to get any money back on it, from what I can tell. And the over under is like 146. So I might play with that. I might go with the over on that, but I don't know that I would bet on either of those teams because just the money you're betting 120 to get your 100, like you're losing
Yeah,
out.
yeah, I agree with you. I like the over under much more at 146 than I do like the spread. Edie's capable of scoring 40 points by himself, so 146 doesn't seem that hard to achieve.
Yeah,
And
no, for sure. And Purdue is minus 106. NC State on their spread is minus 114. So I mean, do with that what you will. I think Purdue's going to win the game. So I would, if you want to make sure that you do get something back, bet Purdue.
yeah, but it looks like by Vegas odds, it looks like they've got both of these 2 games in the Final Four. These 4 teams remaining with both games, they kind of expect to be a bit of a blowout, is what it appears. So
Yeah,
moving on,
UConn at 11.5
yeah, UConn
favorite
Alabama at
over
11.5.
Alabama.
Which I do think is going to be a better basketball game to watch. Still not crazy about the bet itself on the spread, the 11.5. What's the over under on that one?
The over under
A
on
little
that
higher than
is
146.
161.5. And UConn can put up 90 on their own. So, you need 72 points out of Alabama, but like UConn's defense is really good too. So it's tough. If over unders, it's never fun to bet the under, but I might take the under on that 161.5 if I'm looking at that.
Yeah, Alabama's been pretty well known for their offense, but they're about to run into a whole different animal in UConn.
UConn is not going to get beat by anybody. You 11.5 points seems, like you said before, it seems generous. Honestly, Alabama's been a solid team, but UConn is a buzzsaw, man. And again, if you want to bet on this game, the odds aren't great, but take UConn because they're gonna win from That's
And
what I
another
believe.
shout out to our scoreboard, Cheryl, guys. Islanders 2, Hawks 1 with 2 minutes remaining in the game. No surprise there.
Come on, Hawks, get one on the
Yeah.
board.
Yeah, but let's see. Hopefully, Bedard does something special.
If you want to have fun, guys, bet it straight up. Alabama plus 500. Put $10 on it. If they somehow get an upset, you know, you can have some fun with that. You know, you're not really betting too much that it's going to bother you, and give you something to root for if you don't have a dog in the fight.
Yeah, the money lines are obviously probably the most beneficial bets when you've got Vegas predicting that one team's just going to kind of obliterate another, and I don't disagree. UConn Purdue is what we're kind of all waiting for, right?
And and I think the spread in that is going to be Bellinger goes yard from Dan. Nice. Cubs again putting up runs tonight.
His first of the season. Been waiting for that.
The Cubs were getting 1.5 in that game too, and if we had gone on early enough, I would have definitely suggested to take the Cubs with that in that game. And so far, that would have been paying off. So hopefully, you bet the Cubs, guys. But yeah, I think UConn will be a pretty considerable favorite in a matchup with Purdue in the championship too. I mean, 8 to 10 point favorite probably based on the trends we're seeing. And again, I'll root for Purdue because I don't want to root for UConn. I've never liked rooting for UConn, but it looks like it's kind of predetermined now that UConn is gonna take this thing. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's feeling a lot. It's feeling a lot like last year did, man. I mean, it's you could tell almost by the round of 32. Like, I don't know if anyone's got enough to beat this team because, like you said, they're probably the best team in college basketball on both sides of the ball. You know, offense and defense, and that's.
I mean, to go on a 30-0 run against that Illinois team, who was a pretty good team. All
they
year,
could score.
You know?
Yeah, they held Terrence.
Nothing.
They held Terrence Shannon to, I believe, like 2 of 14 shooting or something.
Yeah, I think it was like 40. I think I heard 44 minutes of real time where Illinois didn't score a basket between.
Yeah, I remember Underwood coming out of the locker room after his little speech saying, "That sucked." So
yeah,
we saw
it did suck. But that's what a lot of teams are going to be saying after they play UConn.
And guys, although it is the debut of Dustin and Brandon's Odds Odyssey, we have 25 in the chat right now. So thank you. Thanks for everybody who's interacting with us tonight,
it's a
guys.
good turnout. Thanks for being here, guys.
Yeah.
We're giving this a shot.
We promise this will get better. We promise.
Hopefully there's another one.
So while we're getting these updates from Dano and Cheryl about the Cubs and the Sox, I think we should kind of segue into baseball a little bit here. How do you feel?
NCAA women's. We had Caitlin Clark go off. We just beat LSU, right? I mean, you got the Final Four for them starting on Friday. So, I mean, and you also got NC State on the women's side as well as the men's side in the Final Four. Imagine
two teams from men's and women's NCAA tournaments to the remaining teams.
Imagine being on campus there, man. That's
UConn and
awesome feeling.
UConn and NC State, right? Both.
Yep. Now, NC State is a big underdog in this game against South Carolina. South Carolina is probably the favorite to win it all. But, you know, NC State plus 11.5. South Carolina betting straight up is minus 1250. Again, there's a lot of
what's the money line on NC State then?
The money line plus 710. Plus 710.
Maybe take a chance on that, guys. Have a little fun with it.
Yeah, the first time they've been there since 1998. It's kind of a feel-good story. You know, they're a 3 seed. They beat a 2 and a 1 to get into the Final Four, so they got some momentum behind them.
Yeah, college basketball kind of always has that Cinderella story too. You can never count anyone out.
Did you see that Iowa LSU game was the highest-rated college basketball game in ESPN history?
I did. I also
3 million viewers.
I also heard when Iowa came to Evanston to play Northwestern, you could not get a ticket like weeks in advance to that game. I mean, Clark has obviously had a major impact over, you know, women's NCAA basketball, and I don't think it'll change when she goes to the WNBA, where she'll probably be selected first to Indiana. It's too bad the Chicago Sky are selecting third. Probably throw everything I could at Indiana to
of
see
all times. But they're taking Clark. Caitlin Clark and Iowa are going against Connecticut in the other game in the Final Four for the women's. Connecticut's getting 2.5 points, so that one's projected to be a little closer. If you want to go with the 2.5 that Iowa is giving away, that's -118. So I mean, I think Iowa's going to win that game. I think Vegas thinks so too. So there's also a nice little prop bet you can do on FanDuel where Caitlin Clark is +320 to score 40 plus. We know she's capable of that. Could have some fun with that.
Yeah, she absolutely is. And to be honest, I don't think Iowa's roster top to bottom is anything spectacular. I think now that you're getting into the nitty gritty of this tournament, I think in order for Iowa to advance, it might take Caitlin Clark scoring 40 plus points, honestly. I like the odds on that game a lot more than the NC State game.
Yeah, it's UConn's -104 on that +2.5. So there's a little bit to play with there.
You know, it's gonna be, she's an incredible player to watch, man. I do advise anybody who has a chance to watch Iowa play, watch that. Watch Caitlin Clark. It does bring a different element. To see somebody dominate women's basketball like that, even on a collegiate level, it's pretty exciting.
I mean, that's showing in the fact that everyone was watching in that last game. Like she's bringing viewers to women's basketball, and that's a cool thing. And then I'm probably more interested in that than I have been in the men's for the last 2 years, and I think a lot of people are in that boat, and that's because of Caitlin Clark, all-time leading scorer in college history. If she can win a championship, that would be something to see. I would bet on them just for that storyline.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think Caitlin Clark is the best story in all of college sports right now, to be honest. So do you want to dive in a little bit of White Sox?
I mean, we got some futures here because, like I said, the game started before we got on. So talking about betting on the games doesn't really make much sense right now. But, in terms of the Cubs, they're +130 to make the playoffs. That's decent, bet 100, get 130 out of that. +240 to win the Central.
As Cheryl updates us, the Sox did just beat a really good baseball team, guys, 3-2.
Holy crap!
So a little bit
good for them. They got
a little bit of hope
for the Royals.
Yeah, I'm sure that feels good for
hearing their futures odds. Their futures odds are kind of ugly, man.
Yeah, let's hear it, man. What's the World Series bet on the White Sox right now?
For the White Sox, it's +50,000. According to FanDuel. So I mean, yeah, don't just make that bet. You're just wasting money. I mean, they're +15,000 to win the AL, +14,000 to make the ALCS, +10,000 just to win the Central. I mean, we know they're not going to be that good this year. So, I mean, bet them game to game, show up for the games, have some fun, have a beer. It's a good park to go to and watch a game. I mean, but I don't know how much support you should be giving this team right now, given what the product they're putting on the field, man.
Yeah, and the one thing that does have me a little surprised, and obviously the Sox are a really bad team. There's a great possibility they lose over 100 games, but Luis Roberts, American League MVP odds are at +5,000. He's 17th favored in the American League, and baseball works.
He's a better player than that.
Yeah, absolutely. And the guy could still have an MVP type season as bad as the White Sox are.
But that's again,
obviously the team's success. The team's success reflects a lot of
it's a direct result of the team's lack of success that they're projecting.
Yeah, and I do want, since we have the NFL season approaching, guys, I do want to give a shout out to TC's World of Wonders. It is your holiday headquarters for all Dream Chicago sports jerseys and memorabilia, guys. And as soon as you see the name Williams on the back of a Bears jersey, go out and buy it. Show that kid some support. Who knows what number is going to be on that jersey. So thanks, guys. Thanks to everybody over at TC's World of Wonders.
It's going to end up being an iconic number in the city of Chicago.
Yeah, you got to imagine that's going to be somewhere in the top of the. I wish we could make a bet
jersey
on
sales.
Who's the number one jersey sold in the NFL this year?
He's going to be on that list, top 5 for sure.
Yeah. So, obviously, the White Sox are what they are. Moving on to, there's a couple of Cubs players that are on the National League MVP list. And I think the name that's above all else is a little bit surprising. Suzuki is actually the favored Cubs player for the National League MVP at plus 7,000. Still not great in its entirety, but Bellinger is actually behind Suzuki at plus 8,000. And then the third player is Christopher Morel, who's for the first time played with the Cubs during a season opener at plus 16,000. What do you think about? Do you think Suzuki should be ahead of Bellinger there?
I mean, I could see it for sure because Bellinger's he's getting up there in age. I mean, and he hasn't really been performing yet. Honestly, of that list, I like Morel. He's gotten a run in every game. He's getting RBIs like crazy. He's playing really well. He's scoring for this team. So I think that's a great story. And if he can keep that up, those odds are definitely going to come down, and he's going to have a shot if the Cubs are a successful team and he's playing like this on a consistent level.
Yeah, I think he is
What
going
do
to
you
be a
think
big
about
part
the
of it.
Suzuki odds? That surprise you?
So to me, no, it doesn't. But say is if you were to ask me what the biggest question mark is for the Chicago Cubs, I think I'd say Suzuki. He obviously finished last season really strong, maybe even better than Bellinger. Lit on fire after the All-Star game, but Suzuki was right there with him. So I think they're expecting Suzuki to kind of come into this season the way he finished last season, but it's really tough. 162 games. It's at some points you're obviously going to see he's going to hit some spells. You're going to see some drop off. You're going to see a couple good weeks strung together. But I do believe that it wouldn't be where the Cubs fall on that list surprises me. I don't think it'd be shocking if one of the Cubs played with the Suzuki or Bellinger was the National League MVP. I think Bellinger had started last season the way he played after the All-Star break. I think he actually would have been in the right. He probably would have been like second or third on the list.
I'd be a little shocked if one of those guys came out on top of the list of guys that's there. I mean, it comes down to their season success, right? And then the individual success. Right now, these guys aren't going to be hitting a bunch out of the park in Chicago when it's this weather outside, So give it a little bit of time, and maybe we'll see their stats start to pick up. But they're on fire right now, So I I like that they're plus 800 to make the NLCS on the futures, but then they're plus 3,500 to win the World Series. So like those are some fun odds to play with if you're looking at that, because plus 800 to make the NLCS, that's now you're one series away from the World Series, and that's 30 plus 3,500. Drop 20-30 bucks on that, and just watch it all season and have some fun with it. Maybe that pays off for you if the Cubs figure some things out this year.
Yeah, and Dano guys did just remind us in regards to Luis Robert. I think he's kind of making it's kind of a testament towards Luis Robert's chances of being the MVP. Andrew Dawson did win the MVP in 1987 on the last place Cubs, so it's a little bit different.
Good fact. Yeah,
it's a little bit different than the
nowadays.
NFL. It's a little different than the NFL. You don't necessarily have to play for a playoff team to win.
But you gotta
an MVP.
You gotta be phenomenal. You gotta be just unstoppable for an
entire
season.
And I think if all the things click, man, Luis Robert's going to be somebody who's in that kind of conversation.
He's got the toolkit for it.
Yeah, I might be a little hopeful because obviously I'm all things Chicago, and don't hate me for it, but I do root the Cubs and the White Sox. So regardless of the White Sox overall success, I do hope Luis Robert finally takes that step that he's kind of required to for them to succeed anyway in the future.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, so yeah, we've kind of. I don't want to get too deep into baseball. Probably kind of beat that to death a little bit. We are still 4 games into the season. It's first week of April, guys. I don't want to really get into any overall projections.
Get your Cubs World Series bets in.
Sure,
that's a fun one. Yeah, go for that.
All right, guys. So we did we're jumping around here. We did want to get back a little bit in the NFL into the Super Bowl odds, because I do think the Super Bowl odds are a little bit easier to bet before the draft. You kind of know what teams are going to carry on success from last season. There's obviously going to be a couple of teams that plummet and a couple of teams that surprise you, like the Texans did all of us last year. But the Super Bowl odds are right about where you'd expect them to be, with San Francisco actually ahead of Kansas City. How do you feel about that,
Yeah.
Dustin?
Well, that came out basically right after the Super Bowl that they lost to them, and that was a hard game to watch if you were rooting against Kansas City or if you were rooting for the 49ers. I mean, that was a tough game played down to the wire, but the odds came out for the Niners favor, basically right away at that plus 500. I believe the Chiefs are plus 650. You're looking at Baltimore, who's in there at, let's see here. A lot of numbers here, guys. Sorry, bear with me.
Baltimore's
Baltimore's
at
in there
900.
plus 900, plus
Yeah.
900, right? Detroit's at plus 1100. Buffalo's
Yeah.
at plus 1200. Those are the top five in the league in terms of odds for the to win the Super Bowl as of right now. Who do you like out of that group of five?
Man, I hate to see it. I like, I would love to see the Texans up there, man. But I do agree that San Fran, Kansas City, Baltimore, and Buffalo are probably the way that the Bills looked like a train wreck halfway through the year, and they fired Dorsey, and I was kind of skeptical of that because he had a top 10 offense in every major category, but Brady was able to kind of eliminate the turnovers, and he even did so by like kind of like fizzling digs out of the offense, and they still played really well. So I do like Buffalo there at that 4 spot. Um, you just kind of wish. I have no doubt that San Francisco's going to be in the NFC Championship game. I love them. I love them to be favored. I do. They just got to get past the Detroit Pistons, if you will, of the '90s. They got to get past this Kansas City team.
Well, yeah, well, they're gonna have to get past some NFC teams first. Detroit being up there at plus 1100. That's in the Bears division. That's somebody the Bears are going to be contending directly with, trying to get a playoff spot. So they're your second highest team in the NFC. Now the Packers, if we're looking at the NFC North, are plus 2200 as of right now, Super Bowl odds. What do you think of that?
I'm sorry. Go ahead. Let's repeat. So
The Packers are plus 2200. Their Super Bowl odds currently as they stand.
yeah, I don't. I think the Packers are quite a bit of ways from contending for a Super Bowl. But I don't know. Like I said, I do like them winning the division, so anything's possible. But there's still a really. I think we had a comment
Yeah,
earlier.
you said last night if you're winning the division, you're a contender. I mean,
Yeah, yeah.
I think the Lions are a contender.
That's the expectation. Um, I like. I don't know that I think the Packers should probably be a little higher, man.
You think their odds should be the odds should be lower
Yeah,
or
I think.
higher?
I'm sorry, that should be a little. I think you said it earlier, man. We're all kind of sitting here wondering which Jordan Love is the Jordan Love we're going to see next season and for the future. He finished after October. He was the best quarterback in the league statistically. He had the best touchdown interception ratio. I believe he had the most passing yards as well. But he started the season really rough, and he was a first-year starter, so you expect that. So does Love kind of pick up where he left off is going to be the biggest question mark for me.
Not just pick up where he left off, but improve.
Yeah, get better.
For
and
them to contend for a Super Bowl.
And think about it, if he does, that he threw 4,000 yards and 32 touchdowns. If the guy gets better, are we talking about top 5 quarterback in the NFL?
Honestly, the stats could stay the same, and that team can be successful. It's the turnovers and key moments. It's eliminating those mistakes. I think more so than anything. But plus 2200 is not something I would want to bet on. I'm sure a Packers fan like yourself would want to entertain those odds. Those are pretty nice. The Bears are the Bears are at plus 4,000 Super Bowl odds right now. Now, what's interesting about that is the Vikings are projected 2 games underneath them, and their odds are at plus 4,000 too. So there's a little hope there for the Bears in terms of they could be a playoff team. I mean, when we're talking about these over under projections, one thing I wanted to touch on in regards to the Bears, there's only 6 teams in the NFC right now that are projected to be above them in terms of total wins. So how many teams are in the playoffs, Brando?
7.
7. So right now the Bears are tied at 7 with the Rams. I don't know if I like the Rams as much this year. I did like them last year. I don't know if I like them as much this year. Another year on Matthew Stafford, no Aaron Donald. So
A
Bears
lot
could
of
be
health,
that 7th team.
a lot of health concerns too on the Rams. They haven't
Yeah,
really been
yeah,
able
no
to stay
doubt.
healthy.
So I don't know that I'm that high on them. I think I'm higher on the Bears, and that was one thing that really stood out to me when I was looking at these over unders was the Bears are projected in that 7th slot right now, and there's a good possibility they can make their way into these playoffs this year based on what Vegas is projecting. These over unders are courtesy of ESPN Bet, by the way. That's where I pulled them from.
When I think if the Bears are projected playoff, I mean, can we agree then that means you've got 3 teams from the North?
Eh, maybe not the Packers. Maybe not the Packers. But again, if you're talking about projected wins right now per division, right now the top one in the NFL, the division is the AFC North, projected at 37 wins. And then you're looking at the NFC North, projected with the second most wins at 35 total wins amongst those teams. So, yeah, it's possible. You're talking 12, 9, and 9. Cubs 12, Rockies 2 going into the top of the ninth. Gosh darn.
That's got to make you miss Chris
Putting a
Bryant.
whooping on them. Taking advantage of that high altitude tonight.
Yeah, I think, and you know what? I think the Bears are really, like you said, that obviously that's a decent bet because they're projected 2 more wins than the Vikings and have the same odds in terms of Super Bowl favorites. But Bears are a really tough team to bet this year. They are. You expect improvement. You also expect the growing pains. They kept the same head coach, so I think the expectation from the Bears organization themselves is to win more games than they won last season. I think they could definitely win more than they won 7 last year. I think they could definitely win 2 more games than they did last year.
And that
So
will put them at the over, and that's what I'm going to pick. I mean, regardless of what happens in the draft, I'm going over with the Bears. I'm expecting them to definitely overperform what Vegas has them lined up at right now. Now, if that number goes up to 10, I don't see that happening honestly. Then that might make me look at it a little more closely. But if it stays in that 8.5 to 9 range, I'm going over.
yeah, and it's kind of funny to say because obviously the Bears I think have the fewest picks in the NFL draft, but so much could
They got
change.
2 really high
So
ones.
much could change after their
Yeah.
roster could change top to bottom after that. I mean, honestly, if you
There's a
add
lot of
one,
options they got with that number 9 pick. We've
uh,
talked ad nauseum about that, and it's the most exciting thing to talk about right now for the Bears. But they could come out of this thing looking like a 10-win team if the pieces fall in place the right way.
I agree, man. I agree. It's obviously like we've said time and time again. It's exciting time to be a Bears fan. I do want to dive back into the Chicago Cubs a little bit in regards to the NL Central. The division just seems everyone else in the division to me regressed a little bit. You got the Cincinnati
The
Reds who might be a
Cardinals are
bit.
the favorites. The Cardinals are the
Yeah,
favorites right
that's
now.
that's what I wanted
Yeah.
to discuss. Is the Cardinals are the favorite plus 200 to win the NL Central, and how do you feel about the Cardinals pitching?
Honestly, man, I'm not very schooled on the Cardinals pitching. Let's hear what you got to say about it because
Well,
you're gonna know better than me.
they signed Lance Lynn, who wasn't stellar in Chicago for the White Sox. They still have Sonny Gray, but which I don't know why all of a sudden everybody once he became a Cardinal, everybody loves Sonny Gray. He's kind of plummeting in terms of his production, but I don't think they have a very good rotation at all. I think even their 1 through 3 are kind of weak, and once you get into 4 and 5, it's really bad, honestly. So I don't see why the Cubs aren't favored in the NL Central, but the Cubs are at plus 240 to win that division. I would take that. I would definitely bet
Yeah,
the
no,
Cubs to win that.
that's a good bet. Them to make the playoffs,
Yeah,
them to win the Central. Those are both good bets with good odds that you can get a nice payout on.
and
I,
they
and
have
and I, in regards to the Cardinals, man, I would just say that like just from what I know over the years, the Cardinals tend to get more out of their pitching than people expect pretty consistently. they get retreads a lot, and they perform well on that team for some reason. I'm not sure who their pitching coach is, or if that's been a change or been a consistent thing for them, but they find ways to win. That
Well,
Cardinals team, they have
they're
pretty consistently for a long
you know,
time now.
and I almost feel like those odds are just based on the fact that they're obviously an extremely well-run organization. They always have
Yeah,
been. People don't
yeah,
expect things
that's
like
very
that to
possible.
change. Yeah. And then you have Milwaukee at plus 480. Milwaukee, who I believe finished first in this division last year, and other than losing Craig Counsell, whom the Cubs hired as their manager, they haven't really done too much to their roster. So they're now in fourth place in terms of odds. They're in fourth place in the NL Central. That's kind of, I don't, that might be a bet
So
worth looking at.
who's third? Is it the Reds that are third?
The Reds, yeah,
Yeah.
at plus 330.
So you like those Milwaukee odds? Is that a bet you might make?
Yeah, I do. I don't like. It's another organization that seems to kind of retain success no matter what happens. And Craig Counsell did take them to the playoffs, I believe, 6 consecutive seasons. But there's this. It comes down to the argument that we've all had in sports for years. How much impact does the MLB manager actually have over the team's success? And
I don't think it's a lot. Personally, I think it's going to make a bit of a difference on the Cubs this year, but they just need their players to perform. And
yeah,
I don't think that manager is going to make Suzuki, hit more RBIs. I don't see that being the case. So
no, and I agree. And even if
what you're saying is those odds are low based on just a general manager, the manager change.
Yeah, even if the Brewers were to say not win their division, we're talking obviously about winning the NL Central. But even if they weren't to win the division, for them to be fourth place in the division after winning it last year because they lost a manager is probably it's pretty flabbergasting, man. In regards to all the bets that I've looked at over the course of the last couple of weeks.
That's a sneaky pick, Brandon. That's a sneaky pick. Maybe you guys should jump on that. Brandon's going to jump on it. I hope the Cubs run away with the division this year so I don't have to talk Dano off the ledge in late July. It's like that, Dano.
It's going to start. I'm sorry, Dano, and I hope they do as well, Terry, but I'm going to say this. I don't think anybody runs away with the Central. I think that it's going to be a very tight-knit division throughout the entire year, and I think it's the last couple of weeks of the season is really going to matter to those teams.
No, yeah, you're probably right on that. And then just going back real quick to the Super Bowl odds, man, because we jumped off of that before I could kind of give my sneaky odds per team that I like. I really like the Bengals, man, at plus 1,400 as of right now. That's a sneaky play for you guys with really good odds. If you wanna put some futures down, Joe Burrow's coming back. That receiving core is still intact. The offensive line is getting better. They made some good signings there. They were my favorite in the AFC before Joe Burrow got hurt last year. They were really starting to come on. Plus 1,400 for the Bengals. I like that.
Yeah, I do as well. And I think, this is a team that was in a Super Bowl a few years ago and almost won it, man. Yeah. But I think a lot of people.
And in the AFC Championship the year after that.
But it's really surprising because those odds are honestly very surprising because even when Browning came in to play in place of Burrow, the Bengals still played some pretty good football, honestly.
They played competitive football all the way down. Browning played well, yeah. And I mean, if you put Burrow back with that team, and they're going to have the 18th pick in the draft, they're going to add a good player through there. I mean, I like those odds for the Bengals at plus 1,400. And another one that's extra sneaky is the Chargers at plus 3,000. I don't want to, take anything away from Jim Harbaugh. That guy knows how to win football games, and you pair him with a Justin Herbert, and a guy who wants to run the football, a guy who wants to play hard defense and just really choke the life out of a team, and then has a quarterback that can throw it like Justin Herbert. That I could see them being a lot better than we expect, a lot quicker than we expect.
Yeah. In regards to I agree with you, Dustin, because I keep hearing people say they're stripping it down. And I think because they lost Mike Williams, they lost Keenan Allen, that's probably the two biggest losses I think over the offseason, of course, for them. But I think the Chargers really like who they have at receiver, who they had last year behind Keenan Allen and Mike
They
Williams.
expect big
Mike
things from
Williams,
Quentin Johnston. Yeah,
yeah, he was. People forget. Like I've seen a
high
lot of
draft
people.
pick.
A lot of people are saying in that with that fifth pick, the Chargers stay there and draft wide receiver. But you can't forget they just drafted a wide receiver high in the first round. I think it was the second receiver off the board last season, and they also really like Joshua Palmer. I know they have concerns about his health, but when the guy is healthy, he is an impact player. Justin Herbert seemed to like Palmer a lot, so I agree with
I,
you. I think Harbaugh definitely still has the tools enough to win games for sure.
yeah, for sure. And I think the Chargers, if they stay at that 5 spot, they're gonna go with Joe Alt. That's what I think.
Yeah.
They want to establish the run under Jim Harbaugh, and that's gonna make Justin Herbert that much more dangerous because he's only gonna have to make those throws when they're needed, those big time throws.
I agree, and Harbaugh's probably going to get the best out of them, guys. Let me give a shout out to one more sponsor, friends getting the action, getting on the money, and getting mega fun in a lifetime with the world's #1 fantasy sports app. That is Underdog Fantasy, guys. Underdog Fantasy. Get 5 picks and a mega bank your money and by 20 times. Place your entry today at www.underdogfantasy.com. I think we're all excited for the fantasy season, which is on the way.
Hell yeah.
So yeah, we've
Killing
kind
it
of
on these reads, man. By the way, killing it on these sponsor reads, Brandon.
I
Great fucking
appreciate
job.
Hey, can't forget
Great
our
job.
sponsors, man. That's part of the
No,
reason
you
we do
cannot.
this, right?
Oh
Our
yeah.
sponsors and our viewers, guys. And we
What do we
appreciate
got in the chat, by the way?
we have 30 in the
Since you
chat
said
right now, and I want to shout out to everybody who's kind of been involved in this, guys. Like me and
everybody in
Dustin.
here, thank you so much.
Me and Dustin are always looking for unique things to talk about. You guys you're always there for that. You guys always throw us a curveball, no pun intended.
Really,
So
the heart and soul of this type of a show that we're doing here. The
no,
chat
definitely.
and the
You guys help
comments
us,
that you guys
and
give us.
you help us improve
Yeah.
without even knowing you're doing it. So yeah,
Appreciate
we've touched on the Cubs, the White Sox, we've touched on a lot of the NFL. We'll get a little more into the NCAA tournament once we're in the championship game. You know what I mean? Because right now, like I said, Vegas has both these games being pretty
being
big
blowouts.
blowouts. Yeah,
Yeah.
which I don't
Yeah.
disagree with them. We did
Neither
go
do
with
I.
Super Bloods. Is there anything else in the world of major sports that you think some of these guys can look at in terms of betting odds?
I like to talk some NBA if you're up for that.
Yeah. Let's get
we're
into
coming
it.
down
I
to the
think
end
there
of the
is
season.
two. Yeah, there's 2 games tonight that still haven't. Maybe they start at 9, right?
Oh yeah, I definitely wanted to just. I'm not sure if we might have missed it, so I'm gonna go ahead and
Yeah.
not even throw that out there. That Warriors Mavericks game, but we're coming down to the end of the season. We got NBA Finals odds. We got some MVP race odds. So I just wanted to get into that a little bit. If you got the time for it, my man.
Yeah, definitely. Let's do it. Especially some of those finals odds.
So finals odds, we're talking about the Celtics at plus 170. And that's no surprise. They're one of the best teams in NBA history right now in terms of net rating. They've just been dominating people. Denver's right behind them at plus 350. Now, I personally believe, and I know we've talked about this. You think it's Celtics Nuggets in the finals, right?
I mean, it's looking that way. The Celtics just look. I mean, offensively, man, it's a juggernaut. And yeah, the Nuggets. I think it's a safe bet. They didn't get any worse from who they were last season.
Now the West has gotten a lot better for sure, but it's just really tough to imagine Denver losing in a big game. When they got that 2-man game between Jokic and Murray, they just seem to find a way to get a bucket no matter what. Like they're just an automatic bucket when they're running that 2-man game. So I would go with Denver on that plus through 350 if I'm looking at a team I want to bet because as much as I like the Celtics and I'm rooting for them and I hope they can win the finals this year, you've been watching them kind of slowly make these steps towards winning a championship. They've been in the finals and gave it up against the Warriors. VVV Jiggy says Celtics got so much talent, but I hate watching them play. It's like the best AAU team ever. there is some isolation stuff that comes with Jason Tatum that's going to happen, and Jaylen Brown, right? But their ball movement has been solid with guys like Derek White and adding Kristaps Porzingis, adding Drew Holiday. You got a lot of smart guys that just make the right basketball play when they see it. So it's a little different this year with this Celtics team in terms of that vibe, but I do know what you're referring to, that ISO ball. But I would take Denver. If you're talking Denver and Celtics in the finals, and those are your two best odds, then I'm gonna roll with Denver because I just Celtics have played Denver twice, couldn't beat them.
Yeah.
They were close games. Denver just held them off, man. You got better odds with Denver.
Yeah, the
Returning
difference
champs.
is
I don't.
Denver is the Joker. And that's the difference.
For sure. And again, you got to throw Jamal Murray in there too. If those guys are healthy, they're going to be a tough team to beat.
Gordon's a good player too. I also want to mention, guys, in the National Invitational Tournament, Indiana State did beat Utah tonight, so they are the champions in the NIT tournament. Yeah, Indiana State. So good for them.
Indiana State, Larry Bird.
Yeah, good for those guys, man.
Yeah, like their light blue jerseys.
Do you know what? Do you have the Lakers odds for the finals?
I don't have those actually. I got the top 6 here. The Lakers are not in there. I mean, the 6th team is Dallas. VVV Jiggy says I'm talking about the Celtics mostly jacking up threes. That's the league, man. that's the league. It's working for them, because that's the type of league we're in. Everybody's doing it, and when they hit them, they're unstoppable.
It absolutely is, and that's why it's interesting. Yeah. Like I think Dustin, you mentioned last night that Zach Edey looks like he's definitely moved into the first round as a potential first-round pick in the NBA draft. And, I mean, that guy just doesn't play that kind of basketball. He's different. He's like an old-school kind of center.
There's still a spot for that guy, like that Steven Adams type, a guy that rebounds, defends the rim, and is a rim runner off the
rim defender. Yeah,
a rim defender and a rim runner. He's gonna catch that ball and slam it on someone's head if he's got a cut to the basket. The 6th team on there is.
Sorry. So
the 6th team on the NBA Finals odds is Dallas. I just want to get this in. Dallas is at plus 2,300. I've loved Dallas all year from before the season even started. I would play around with that. I like those odds plus 2,300. Dallas is on a 7-game winning streak. Might be 8 now, starting here with the game they got against the Warriors tonight, and they're plus 950 to win the West. So. Dallas is a sleeper team for me in that regard, in terms of a team that could find its way into the NBA Finals.
Yeah, I don't so much like Dallas. Still needs 1 or 2 more pieces, but I mean, we know how the NBA works. We saw Jimmy Butler do it. We've seen LeBron do it time and time again.
And Luka is
special players do
that.
Yeah, Jokic did it last year. Special players do special things when it matters most, or as Stacey King says, big time players make big time plays. And I do think that Luka is a guy who's capable. And I honestly, Luka is going to get better, which is kind of scary. I really believe that. Luka has not reached his ceiling yet. He's going to get better, and he's already kind of blowing out any player that's played previous to him statistically throughout the span he's been in the NBA.
Can we read this one from VVV Jiggy?
Yeah, Doc Rivers is screwing the Bucks. They should be the favorite in the East.
The Bucks are plus 750. But I don't think Doc is screwing them. He took over a kind of a mess.
Well,
right? in the first place. They went with Adrian Griffin, and he couldn't get the job done.
And Doc
coaching changed mid-season. That's rough.
He's heavy on defense, and the Milwaukee Bucks let go of some detrimental defensive pieces in the offseason.
Drew Holiday. I mean, yeah.
They lost.
And defended everyone.
The Bulls signed Carter, who was a good perimeter defender too. I don't. Doc Rivers is. I think the verdict's not out yet on Doc Rivers and the Bucks. The
Bucks will probably be in the Eastern Conference Finals against that Celtics team, and they've been coming on strong. And Doc Rivers is a good coach, but the knock against him is he can't get that team over the hump. He can't get past those Eastern Conference Finals since he was with the Celtics. So I don't think he's screwing them over, though. I think he took over a bad situation, and he's made that team better.
A team that I would keep an eye on, guys. The Miami Heat are plus 4,800 favorites to win the NBA Finals, and it seems like they're when they're never the best team throughout the course of the season. It seems like they're still there at the end.
They never are. They never
You know
are.
what I mean?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
Jimmy, like I said, special players do special things when it matters most. And Jimmy Butler is unbreakable once the NBA playoffs come around. So keep a close eye on that. The Lakers and Miami are actually tied right now at 4,800.
No, Bill Simmons calls the Heat Michael Myers of the NBA because like every time you think they're dead, they just come back and start murdering.
Yeah, they're gritty and they're well coached. Spoelstra's still doing a good job coaching over there, even after the after everybody took their talent out of Miami. He still found a way to get guys there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, and Spoelstra's the best coach in the NBA. So,
Mm.
but I'm still gonna write him off, and hopefully we'll have some fun watching them make a run again in this year in the playoffs. But those are fun odds to play with for sure. Plus 4,800.
Yeah, and we're about to. I think we're definitely one thing that I know for sure. We're about to watch some really good basketball. The playoffs are about to start, guys. The NBA playoffs is always fun.
Oh yeah,
I understand those who want to watch all 82 games. It's a long season, but NBA playoffs is kind of can't miss sports.
high level basketball, and there's some really good teams in the NBA this year. It's going to be a lot of good series.
And look,
Just in regards to the Bulls, man, you got a couple of players that are in some award races for them too. So I just wanted to touch on that real quick. We got Kobe White and the most improved player. You're looking at him as a plus 140 odds for most improved player. He's behind Maxi though. Maxi's at minus 195 according to FanDuel. So Kobe has a chance to get that, but it's looking like Maxi has a pretty good stranglehold on that award race right now.
I love
Like
the
it'd be
bet.
nice to see one of the Bulls get an award like that though.
I love the bet. If you
You
want to,
get the plus 140?
yeah, and
No, I would take it for sure. I agree.
that's a that's a good bet, man. Kobe White has had. I mean, I can't know the numbers off that, but I think his scoring went up like 4 or 5 points. His assist went up by like 3.5, and his rebounds even went up by I believe 3. I mean, the guy's made major improvements in every area of the game.
His
He's
3 point
kind of,
percentage, yeah.
and I know Dustin, you liked him. You liked him a lot when they took him at 7, and he has definitely finally become that 7th overall pick he was in the draft. Took a couple
Yeah, no,
years. The Bulls stuck
I
by
never
him.
gave up on him. And we talked about this last night too. Like, and it was like one of my closing thoughts. Just like the work he's put in. To me, the biggest thing is just his decision making. When he's got the ball in his hands, he's making the right decision. If he's getting that entry pass in the booch, or if he's finding a cutter, or he's finding the guy in the corner for the three, from across the court, or if he needs to pull up and shoot that three. Like it's just his decision making has just been so much improved this year, and I would love to see him win that award plus 140. That's a bet worth making, guys, for sure.
Yeah. Is there any
Yeah.
other Bulls in the awards finalists categories?
The Clutch Player Award, which is kind of bullshit. We were talking about that earlier. I think they just came out with that award last
Yeah.
year.
Or like,
I mean,
yeah,
with
I don't know.
yeah. I mean, it's an interesting award, I guess. And the Bulls have played more clutch games than anybody, maybe ever in the history of ever. Like this year, like it's tough on your heart watching the Bulls because they seem to always be in close games. But DeMar's minus 150, leading that award race. So I mean, we could have a couple of Bulls taking home some hardware this year, even if it's not the Larry O'Brien Trophy.
And I actually do like the award. As ridiculous as it sounds, the Clutch Player of the Year award. But the
I
NBA
like it
is
too. It's a
the
cool.
NBA is
It's just
fascinating
crazy.
because of all team sports, it's probably the one sport where one guy can really kind of take over a game at the end. The final few minutes of regulation. Sometimes, especially DeMar, you've watched how many times where the guy just lights fire and not only drawing the fouls and getting the line and the N ones, but it just seems like he's almost impossible to defend when it counts. I mean, that mid
Yeah, and it
range
seems
jumper.
like his 3 point percentage just increases by 40% at the end of games. Like he doesn't shoot threes all game, it's all mid range. And then with there's like a minute left, he'll just pull up a three from the top of the key and just swish. So I mean, like, no, yeah, he's been fun to watch at the end of these games. And if he wins that award, it'll be well deserved. Love to see that.
Yeah, I don't think it was a national title, but I think the Bulls fan base last year gave him the nickname King of the Fourth, which kind of speaks for itself in regards to clutch, right?
No, yeah, for sure. And he's carried that over into this year and then some, man. So just some bright
So
spots on a rough Bulls season I wanted to highlight. For us
real
Bulls
quick.
fans.
Speaking about the Bulls, sorry guys, this isn't betting odds, but didn't they locked in a spot, didn't they?
They've been in, I mean, I guess officially, but yeah, they've been
Ninth?
in that secured. No, that's I don't think ninth is secured, is it? I think they could because they just lost to the Hawks, who are 10th. So I feel like I think they locked in a play-in spot, but that whether it's ninth or 10th is, I don't know that that's
Okay, so
decided. I could be wrong though.
they're just for sure going to be playing after the season's over.
Yep. Well, yep, but not necessarily in the playoffs because, as we've discussed, you got to beat the Hawks, and then you got to go beat either the Heat or the Sixers, probably, to then get in the playoffs to play the Celtics.
Yeah,
So
and
hopefully,
it feels like the Bulls consistently run into that Heat team. That's like I said, that's not a
yeah,
team. It's not a team you want to run into.
as we've discussed, it's kind of you kind of hope that maybe they don't make it just so they can get a better draft pick. They have their first round pick this year, and I'd love to see the Bulls playing in some meaningful games, but also I'd love to see them get the highest draft pick possible because, as we said last night, they're in purgatory. They need some assets, some young ones.
So, in the premiere of Dustin and Brandon's Odds Odyssey, Dustin, we've talked about a lot of sports and we've talked about a lot of bets, and we're going to start a segment here tonight. We're going to call it Safe Bet. What do you think of all the bets that we've discussed this evening? Which do you think is the safest bet to make? And it's honestly not being biased. I think I know what you're going to say.
I don't think you do. But let's see.
And I don't think it's going to be reflecting of any bias. I think that the over on the Bears 8.5 is probably the safest bet we've talked about.
That can be yours, and I agree, and I'm right there with you. But my safest bet is another 8.5 over under. It's the Houston Texans at 8.5 in that AFC South. I mean, I don't see how they don't win at least 9 games in that division. I like the odds on the money back on that. Yeah, definitely put your money down on the Houston Texans. And I like this segment, man. You just come up with that.
Yeah.
You're a fucking boss, Brandon.
Yeah.
Killing it.
Yeah, so
so yours is the Bears, mine's the Texans.
Yeah, those are your safe bets, guys. So put your money where our mouth is. Make those bets, guys. Those are two
Maybe
bets.
we can get like Safe Light Repair to sponsor our safe bets.
Maybe we can get Doug Plank back on and hear from a safety. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
With that being said, guys, I do want to thank the sponsors again real quick. Bridges Scoreboard Restaurant and Sports Bar in Indiana. Serendipity's Ice Cream Parlor right across the street. So after you have some dinner and a beer, go across the street and get some Serendipity's ice cream. TC's World of Wonders. Budget Cars. Absolutely. Worth Stadium Club, which I looked at online today, guys. It looks like a really cool spot. It's a gaming cafe, and their cocktails, like from a person who tended bar for 13 years, their cocktails look really, really
Joe
good.
Dicka.
Yeah,
he complimented your segment, and he complimented both of our picks.
Thanks, Joe Dicka. Yeah. As possible descendant of Mike. No, that's actually my buddy Tim. I know who that is. And our last sponsor, guys, Underdog Fantasy. Like I said, the fantasy season is around the corner. You're probably going to want to even start making, after the draft, you're going to want to start making your pre-draft rankings if you're anything like me and you obsess over fantasy football. And I think Brandon Trax does have something in the works in regards to possibly a fantasy football show as well.
Love to get some fantasy talk going.
With our co-host, Michael. You guys want to hear? I mean, guy's got every number in his brain, so he could probably tell you who to start and who to sit before the season even starts. With that being said, though, guys, we do always want to thank Brandon Trax, the guy who makes all this possible. He is the oil in the well-oiled machine.
Trax.
So, Trax, thanks for giving us a
shot. Works hard
this.
So we can have fun on this. Hell yeah. Fearless leader.
Dedication for real, man, guys. That guy, I mean, blood, sweat, and tears. He puts everything he has into this, everything that he has, and really anything that he does. But he's given a lot of guys like us opportunities to get out here and talk your ears off. And speaking of talking your ears off, guys, I just want to thank everybody who viewed tonight, everybody in the chat. Thanks for being a part of it. Like we said,
guys, this was fun. Hopefully we have another episode.
Yeah, this will get better, guys.
It's a work in progress.
We're rookies, guys. Man. Give us a break. Thanks, Dustin. Thanks for joining me, man. Thanks.
Ditto.
It's fun to, even prior to the NFL's draft, the NFL season start. It's fun to get into those things because now's the time to make those bets, guys. The odds change.
Yeah, you got some pretty good odds on the Bears right now.
Yeah,
you can jump on. The Bears are only getting better.
Yeah, I don't see those odds getting any better after the draft.
But the Bears are getting better. Yeah, so
yeah, definitely
jump on those now.
So once again, guys, thanks for joining us. I believe we do have a Wednesday night show. We have a show tomorrow night. I believe Coop is hosting. I believe Brian and Kyle will be on there with them as well. So make sure you tune into that. Like and subscribe, guys. Like and subscribe. It means a lot. That's how we're able to keep putting out the content we do. It's how we're able to not just bring it to you, but break it down. Guys, thanks again, Dustin.
Thanks, everybody.
And hopefully see you on Dustin and Brandon's Odds Odyssey premiere, or not premiere, Odds Odyssey again next week, guys.
We'll see how it goes.